Hello everyone. In this session, I'm going to talk about stative verbs. So, what is a verb basically? When we discuss parts of speech, we say that verb is a word that denotes an action. Is that right? But when we look at it closely, there are again two kinds of verbs. One is your stative verbs and the other is action verbs. Okay, so stative verbs, as the word suggests, stative verbs are more to do with the state rather than an action. So stative verbs describe a state and not a physical action. So because these are to do with the state of a person, a thing, or anything, something else, you can't use the present continuous with stative verbs. So this is a simple thing that has to be kept in mind, right? So we usually use the simple present instead of the present continuous. So for people who are not aware of the present continuous form, we use are as the helping verb and ing as the suffix with the verb. Okay. For example, you are walking, they are talking, I am teaching, etc. Okay, so that is present continuous. So we can't use the present continuous tense with the stative verbs. So what are stative verbs basically? Because they are related to describing the state of something, they are used ideally to denote thoughts and opinions. For example, some of these stative verbs that denote thoughts and opinions are agree, believe, doubt, guess, imagine, know, mean, recognize, remember, suspect, think, understand, etc. So these are about your thoughts and opinions. Okay, and stative verbs are also used to denote feelings and emotions like dislike, hate, like, love, prefer, want, wish. So if you can see, these are more to do with the mind and heart rather than the physical body. Okay. Another one is your senses and perceptions. So your stative verbs are also used to denote senses and perceptions, such as appear, this is a perception, be, feel, hear, look, see, seem, smell, taste, etc. And possession and measurement. Okay, so when you say it measures, it's not an action that you're doing, but you're talking about the state of something. Okay, so possession and state. Possession means owning something. So belong, have, measure, own, possess, weigh. So these are some of the examples of your stative verbs. So as I told you earlier, the stative verbs are always used in combination with the present continuous form, meaning you use helping verbs am and are plus the suffix ing. Okay, they can't be used, so they cannot be used with the present continuous form. It's wrong to use the stative verbs in the present continuous form. So what form should we use? We should always use the simple present to talk about stative verbs. Okay, so one very common mistake that learners do is to use the present continuous form, and this is what causes confusion. So let's look at some examples of some common mistakes and how to use them correctly. So the first one, as I told you, stative verbs talk about senses. For this reason, whenever you're talking about your senses, you can't use the present continuous form. You should always use the simple present. So I'm hearing you is wrong. Even if you're actually hearing something, even if you're hearing a noise, or even if you're hearing someone talk, you can't say I'm hearing you. You say I hear you. That means you're able to hear them. Okay, so I'm seeing you. You can't say that. You can only say I can see you. Okay, now look at this one. he is not smelling anything. Is that correct? It carries a completely different meaning. That means he's not doing the act of smelling anything. Okay, so you don't do that, do you? Okay, you can say words like sniff, but you can't say it. You can't use smell as an active or action verb. So he's not smelling anything. I doubt of corona. So that's wrong to say. You must say that his ability to smell has been affected. So he cannot smell anything. I doubt of corona. Okay, so that is more appropriate. Now, you might be serving a dinner, okay, to a friend, and maybe they are eating at that point. Okay, so you want to know how the taste is, but you can't say how is it tasting. Even if they are doing the act of eating at that point, you can't ask how is it tasting. You only say how does it taste. Okay, so you're not physically doing anything there. It's something to do with the senses, perception. Okay, another one is, are you recognizing me? Okay, now this might be direct translation from our mother tongues. Okay, so you can't say are you recognizing me. Okay, in English the specific expression can be can you recognize me or do you recognize me. Okay, so maybe they will be trying. You can say are you trying to recognize me? That's more appropriate, but you can't say are you recognizing me? That's wrong. So you have to say do you recognize me or can you recognize me? Okay, now as I told you, stative verbs are used to talk about appearances. Okay, so here when you say someone looks beautiful or when you say someone is beautiful, you can't use the word look with ing. So you can't say she is looking beautiful. Okay, because looks are permanent, right? So if you're talking about looks as permanent, you should say she looks beautiful. Okay, generally describing someone, you say she looks beautiful. Okay, and if you're talking about the present moment, okay, someone might have worked very hard. She might be beautiful, but when she works hard, she might be tired and she might look tired. So at that point, you can say she is looking tired, or you could also say she is looking dull or she is looking exhausted. Okay, so for present moment, you can talk about present continuous tense. Okay, but generally, when you're talking about permanent looks of a person, you can't use present continuous. You have to use simple present. Okay, the same applies to being handsome. Okay, so you can't say he is appearing handsome. You must say he appears handsome. Okay, so that's a permanent trait, a permanent quality. Right, now if you look at the word appear, it also has an action verb meaning. Okay, so when you appear for something, for example an exam, you are actually sitting an exam or you're actually writing an exam. Okay, so look at this sentence that is put together beautifully. He appears handsome, but he is appearing for an exam. Okay, so maybe he's looking nervous. That's different. Okay, so he appears handsome, but he is appearing for an exam. Now, next one is to do with your desires. Okay, so the child is wanting its mother. Okay, so maybe the child is crying, okay, at that point of time. So the physical action he's doing is maybe he's crying or maybe he's walking towards his mother. But you can't say the child is wanting its mother. Okay, the act of wanting is not something you do with your hands and legs or something you would do with your physical body, but it's more to do with your heart. Okay, so for that reason you say the child wants its mother. Okay, now there is another connotation or another meaning to the word wanting. Okay, wanting means when you don't have something, that is like wanting. Okay, wanting is exactly another word for lacking. Okay, so he is not wanting in enthusiasm, so he's not lacking enthusiasm. Okay, so that's what you can say. Now next one, It's a very common mistake that we say, I'm wishing you all the best, isn't it? Some people say this, but it's not a standard way to say. You always say, I wish you all the best. Okay? And another one we often see in birthday cards where it says, here's wishing you loads of happiness. Now that's a different expression. Okay? It doesn't carry the same meaning as I'm wishing you. So when you're saying, I personally, when you're conveying your wishes, when you want to use I, you can't use the present continuous. You should always use the simple present form, which says, I wish you all the best. That's more appropriate. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, as I told you, with wants and desires, you can't use the present continuous. So you can't say, David is desiring Lena, even if that thing is happening at the moment, at present. Okay, so he actually wants Lena. You can't say he is desiring. You can only say David desires Lena. They are together for 30 years. Okay, so it's very evident from the fact that they're together for 30 years that David desires or David likes Lena. Okay, so but you can't use it in present continuous, right? And the same thing applies to thoughts as well. So she is thinking of her future. Is that correct? No. So if you're concerned, thinking again, it's something to do with the mind and not with the body. So you can't use the present continuous. You should say she thinks of or she thinks about her future. Clear? Now another one. Even if you're actually feeling bad at the moment, you can't say, I'm feeling awkward, right? Like, I'm feeling embarrassed, I'm feeling awkward. It's very much common to make this mistake. Okay, even learned people do this. But grammatically, what you have to say is, I feel awkward or I feel embarrassed. Okay, so this is more appropriate. Can you see the sophistication that is very evident when you use the rules of grammar? Okay, so you sound more posh, more polished. So you should always say, I feel awkward, and you can't say, I'm feeling awkward. Okay, the same thing goes for likes and dislikes as well. So when you say, I'm liking you, what you imply is, I like you. Okay, so I'm liking you is very transient. Okay, it's not permanent and it doesn't make a good impression, isn't it? And grammatically also, it's not correct because it's not a physical action. So it's something to do with your mind and heart. So I like you. The same applies for I love as well. So you can't say I'm loving English. You say I love English. Okay, there's a famous caption for McDonald's it says I'm loving it, right? It is famous, okay, because it's odd. There's a quirk to it, so it's not a regular usage. Okay, in spite of having it as a caption, we can't call it grammatically correct. Okay, so you always say I love English, right? Next one is he is desiring to be great. You could say he's working to be great, or his you can't work to be great, of course, but when you say desiring, it's again something that you don't do willfully. Okay, willfully, or it's not something that you do that is evident to the eye. Desire is something to do with the heart again. So he desires to be great. Everyone desires to be great, don't they? Okay, so next one, again, likes and dislikes. I'm hating smoking. Okay, even if you've liked it in the past, or even if you want to like it in the future, even if you hate it only for a temporary moment, you still can't say I'm hating. Okay, you generally say I hate smoking. Next one, parents are caring for their children. Okay, is that a statement that talks about parents' love for their children generally? That doesn't appear so. So parents care for their children is more appropriate. Okay, this is something that can't change. Parents always care for their children. Okay, caring can be used as an adjective. Okay, she is a caring person. Okay, caring is a noun as well, isn't it? Caring and sharing can be used as nouns as well. So that is a different aspect. But when you're talking about care for children, you can't say parents are caring for their children. What is correct is you have to say parents care for their children. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I'm admiring your qualities. Okay, is that something that you're doing with your hands and legs? No, it's just physical, right? So here admire is something to do with the heart, mind. So you say I admire your qualities, right? Next one, they are refusing our help or your help. Okay, so that's wrong again. What do you say? They refuse our help. Okay, they are refusing our help. Even if that's happening at that point of time, you can't say they are refusing. Okay, so even if you're trying to negotiate or liaise with someone and trying to communicate the message to someone else about it, so you can't say they are refusing our help. You always say they refuse our help. Okay, now another one with parents again is parents are forgiving their children. Is that correct? No, this is something that happens regularly all the time. Parents always forgive their children. So for this reason, it's always better to use the simple present, okay, and it's a stative verb. So you say parents forgive their children. Okay, let's look at more of this sort. So as I told you, likes and dislikes again. So he is disliking me. That's wrong. What do you say? He dislikes me. And hope, I'm hoping all the best. People generally say I'm hoping for the best. Okay, it's a very commonly used sentence, but more appropriately used form should be I hope for the best. Okay, or I hope all the best. I hope everything goes fine. You can't say I'm hoping. Okay, next one, I'm believing in God. Again, something to do with your mind and something that doesn't change. Okay, belief in God is something that's constant for everyone or for most of us who believe in God. Okay, so I believe in God is more appropriate. The same goes for trust. When you trust someone, it's not transient, it's not temporary, it lasts for a lifetime. Okay, unless the trust is broken. You say you either trust or you don't trust, but you can't say I'm trusting my friend. That's very incorrect to say. So what do you say? I trust my friend. Next one, I'm not agreeing. As I told you, agree is about your opinion. So opinions can't be used with present continuous, for which reason you can't say I'm not agreeing. You should say I do not agree. Okay, the same thing with disagree, and this is a question form. Okay, so when you want to know others' opinions, you should always say, do you disagree with me? That's more correct. Okay, even if it is about that point of time, you can't ask them, are you disagreeing with me? Okay, that's wrong. Okay. Are you trying to say you're disagreeing with me? That's okay. Okay, but you can't say, are you disagreeing with me? Next one, I'm considering your proposal. Even though it sounds grammatically correct, you can't use it because consider is a stative verb and that has to be used in simple present. So you should say, I consider your proposal. Okay, next one, are you remembering me? This sentence is almost similar to recognizing, right? So remember, recognize, recall, etc. So you can't use it in present continuous. So what do you say? Do you remember me? Or can you remember me? Right? Next one. Know is also similar to this. So he is knowing me is wrong. What should you say? He knows me. Okay, if you know someone, you can't change that fact. Okay, you can't change it like, in the past, he wasn't knowing me. In the future, he will be knowing me. No, you only say he knows me. Okay. Next one, I'm forgetting many things. Yeah, is there anything wrong with this sentence? It sounds so correct, doesn't it? I'm forgetting many things these days. People tend to say this, okay? But generally, when you talk about the quality of a person who is very forgetful, you can say, I forget many things, okay? And moving on to the next one. Are you understanding? Again, understand is something to do with the mind. Is that right? Are you making sense of something? Right? So for that, you must say, do you understand? Or are you able to understand? This is a very common mistake that teachers make, okay, especially here in India. You can't say, are you understanding? Okay, it sounds correct because at that point of time when the action is going on, the act of teaching is going on, you would be really interested to know whether the children are following or not. So I think follow is a good word. Are you following me? Are you able to follow me? Or are you able to understand me? But you can't use are in combination with understanding. So you should always say, do you understand? Okay, next one. She is imagining something. Okay, is it at that point of time or is it generally? That has to be considered. Okay, so she imagines something is more appropriate. Next one. I'm guessing something, or I'm guessing something would happen. Okay, this is wrong. What should you say? I guess something, or I guess something would happen. Okay, now the same thing, something to do with when you try saying something when it has a different meaning, or it could be understood in many different forms. You ask, what do you mean? But you don't say, what are you meaning? Isn't it? Okay, what do you mean? Is that clear? Now another one is, are you minding it? Is that correct? Minding, again, mind is when you object to something. Now when you object to something, you don't always do anything physically. Is that right? So mind is something to do with mind again. Okay, are you minding it? Is wrong. What should you say? Do you mind it? Okay, and next one. She is supposing something. This is similar to imagining, right? So again, because that's a stative verb, you should say she supposes something. Okay. Now, Lena is having 2 children. Okay, have is a verb that can be used as a consume. Okay, have, or this is also used for possession, right? So have is to possess something. So here this is used in that meaning. So for that reason, you can't use it in present continuous. So you say Lena has 2 children. It's not that she has them now and she can't have them in future. That's wrong. So you say Lena has 2 children. The same thing here. If you can see, Nishka has a nice dress. That's also grammatically correct, isn't it? But again, Nishka is having a nice dress now sounds more, appropriate, doesn't it? Now, next one. Santosh is belonging to Hanamkunda. That's again, belonging is not a physical action, but it talks about possession. So Santosh belongs to Hanamkunda. That describes him. So that's why simple present. I'm owing something to KU. Owing is again a stative verb. So you use I owe something to KU. Okay, and now to CDU. Right, let's go to the next one. Nageshwar is owning a house. So again, owning is a possession, which is a stative verb. So you say Nageshwar owns a house. She is possessing good qualities. Okay, which is wrong. You say she possesses good qualities. Okay, our batch is consisting of 10 friends. Okay, that's again wrong. Consist is to be present, to have in it. Okay, so our batch consists of 10 friends is more appropriate. The same thing goes for contain. You can't say is containing. You say our batch contains 10 friends, right? Electric car is costing 15 lakhs. Now cost is something that you can't change. Cost remains cost. Okay, so you have to use it in simple present. Okay, electric car costs 15 lakhs. Okay, and Sudhir is keeping good company. Sudhir keeps good company. So he has the ability to keep good company. So in that context, you have to use only simple present. Okay, so that is about some common mistakes made with the stative verbs and how to correct them, how to use them in the right way. Now, I just mentioned that you can't use stative verbs with ing. Okay, in a sentence form, but you can use stative verbs with ing to denote the name of an action, which is called a gerund. Okay, so a verb which has the suffix of ing and that serves the function of a noun is called a gerund. So in that case, you can use stative verbs with ing. Okay, now this is what English is all about. The moment you learn a concept, there is always an exception. Okay, so this is a completely different concept where stative verbs are used as gerunds, and here you use the suffix ing to denote the name of an action. Is that clear? So let's look at some beautiful examples here. All these are compiled by a professor that I know. So all, they're packed with meaning and they make so much sense. Okay, so keeping is as good as owning. Does this apply to books? People often borrow books and they keep them without returning. So is that good as owning? So keeping is as good as owning. Loving is better than hating. Forgiving is better than refusing. Seeing is as good as looking. Smelling is different from tasting. Isn't that so? Okay, noticing is as good as recognizing. Right? You recognize something only when you notice something that stands out. Hearing is different from listening. Do you agree with me on this, people? Yes, hearing is very much different from listening, isn't it? So hearing is something to do with senses. Listening is something to do with mind, with the mind. Is looking different from appearing? I think so. Desiring is different from wishing. Yes, I think desire is a strong word. Okay, wish is, maybe just a wishful desire, but desire is definitely something more profound, isn't it? So desiring is different from wishing. Liking is better than disliking. Believing is different from thinking. Okay, of course, belief is a thought, but believing is different from thinking. Okay, trusting is better than hoping. Agreeing is better than disagreeing. Knowing is better than remembering. Remembering is better than forgetting. Considering comes after knowing. Guessing is different from imagining. Belonging is better than having. Owing is better than owning. So yes, people, that's all the wisdom to take home today. So if you like this video, please give it a like and also subscribe to my channel.